Kamen,
Yes.
to close out the show.
No.
All right, that's our show, folks.
I got him.
You texted me earlier this week, or actually last week, and you said, Kamen, you said Patrick. You said, I'm Kamen. Patrick, I'm having video game burnout. No, you said, you asked me the question, should Tears of the Kingdom be game of the year? I asked our audience, I asked myself, but before we jump into any of it, I want to turn it over to you so that you can set the stage for this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No. It's Tears of the Kingdom will not be game of the year. I know. I said it. And I know there's a lot of people screaming right now. Kamen, what are you talking about? Here's the thing. This is where the peelers. I might not have played a video game in 2 weeks. but I still have my finger on the pulse, right?
Okay.
And this is something I brought up to you about Tears of the Kingdom. When Breath of the Wild launched, like Elden Ring, Breath of the Wild was talked about for a solid year. And this is not a situation in which like Breath of the Wild launched in like a dead year.
Sure.
That's not the case at all.
We Very busy year that year.
One of the greatest open world game action RPGs of all time, Horizon Zero Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
We had the last 3D, the last true 3D Mario game with Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, amongst a bunch of other really good games.
Control, I think, was that year. Like, it was a great year.
Really good games that year. But Breath of the Wild's conversation lasted a solid year. It still was brought up until Tears of the Kingdom came out. It was still brought up all the time on like what was going to be the next Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Okay. Elden Ring launches last year. As we all know, Elden Ring launched aside God of War Ragnarok, one of the greatest games ever made. People talked about Elden Ring all year. People are still talking about Elden Ring. We have Armor Core 6
on this podcast.
We got Armor Core 6 coming out. And people are getting hyped over that because they're still hyped over Elden Ring. But the thing with Tears of the Kingdom, even though to me, Tears of the Kingdom is a much better game than Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild walked so that Tears of the Kingdom could run. And I think Tears of the Kingdom does so many things that are so outlandish. It is a technical marvel. It is a masterpiece of a game, Patrick.
Yes, I agree.
Baldur's Gate 3 will be game of the year. Because here's the thing. And this is what I think is crazy. The last Baldur's Gate came out 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The conversation around Baldur's Gate right now is changing the scope of AAA games. Whereas Breath of the Wild did the same thing. We have developers on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. It is still fucking Twitter. That are complaining that like it's not fair that Baldur's Gate exists because it will create a misconception that RPGs will be like that. It is a monumental task, whatever this is happening. And I haven't touched this game. I don't need to touch this game to tell you that. Like the conversation around this game is something that is it. The only thing I can compare it to is Elden Ring and is Breath of the Wild. And I think the one thing, and I could say like Tears of the Kingdom, it is fucking incredible. But that conversation, and it could be the fact that this year it has too many games.
Yeah, I mean, compared to 2017, there are a lot more this year.
Yeah, so and sure, it very well could be. But I think the thing is, the conversation, I'm not hearing really anyone. Like the memes and everything, like they still trickle out from time to time, and people still will bring it up, you know. And it's not like the game people like stop talking entirely about it, but like the lasting impact of it, I don't think is carrying over the same way that I look at something like Baldur's Gate. Now, hear me out.
Yeah.
Starfield could drop. And Starfield could be that, where they're like, this is the revolution. This is where games go next. Very well could happen. I don't think so. I think we really need to, like I said before, I don't know. I get this gut feeling of pump the brakes a little bit on Starfield. I still worry about how it's going to run and perform on Series S to the point that I don't know if it will. I think it will, but I think we might have a Cyberpunk situation on our hands.
Good.
But I think Baldur's Gate 3 is one of those things where it's like, you don't even need to, like, you don't need to play the game to see the conversation taking place where people are like, It's insane. I just saw something. Apparently, you can beat the game in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because there's a way to do it that the developers designed specifically in the game to cause you to literally like skip through time if you do one very specific action.
Amazing.
Which is fucking incredible to me. The fact that like if you take too long of a rest, you can miss entire story beats, could just gone. And it's these weird things where, and you can have sex with a bear. So like there's things. And I think Tears of the Kingdom, its hang up, and I'm going to say this, and people are going to be like, Kamen, what are you talking about? I think it being a sequel, it's going to hurt it. And what I hear people say is Baldur's Gate 3, what does the 3 stand for, dickhead? The last Baldur's Gate came out, and it was revolutionary when it came out, was 15 years ago.
Right. A totally different game.
Yeah, and I think the thing is with Tears of the Kingdom, where it might get the hang up, is they go, while we can say, yes, the map is the exact same on top, there's a whole okay, it's almost 100% identical. Underneath, there's a whole other world, but the whole other world is very limited in what you can do. There's like one temple down there, and there's not really a lot else. And there's a lot you can find. There's a lot of stuff that goes on and all these things. It's really cool. Don't get me wrong. I feel like this sounds like I'm shitting on Tears of the Kingdom, and I'm absolutely not. Tears of the Kingdom is great. But I think at the end of the year, when we talk about Game of the Year, I think the conversation is not going to be a situation of like, what was the most fun or what was the most played, even though Baldur's Gate 3, I think, just actually set the record for most concurrent players ever on Steam.
It almost did. It was like 4,000 short. It
way.
It was nearly 1 million concurrent players. It was like 855,000. And it was like, weirdly, earlier this year, Hogwarts Legacy still holds the record. It was literally like 3,000 more than what they ended up peaking at. Insane.
Mind blown. So I think my thing is like, you look at that, right? And you go, something's happening here.
Yeah.
And while I think Tears of the Kingdom is a fucking amazing game and borderlines perfection in terms of all of what it does, I think that conversation, when they start racking up the tally points at the end and they go, you know, we get to that point where they're like, all right, what's the game? It's going to come down to 2 games that are 10s. But which one of those ones has changed the face of the way AAA gaming goes forward? And I think that Baldur's Gate takes the edge on that.
There's a lot to unpack here.
Unpack it, baby.
The obvious caveat being I haven't touched Baldur's Gate 3, but I plan to. And I will say, if you had 3 weeks ago said, we're going to be talking about a game on the podcast that might be Game of the Year over Tears of the Kingdom, and I look at all of these games coming in the fall, Starfield, Spider-Man, Alan Wake 2, a new Mario game, Baldur's Gate 3 would have been bottom of the list. But the truth is, it has surprised all of us with what it's capable of, the story it's telling, and the kind of game it is. Just as an looking in, I can see that this game is special, which is why I've talked so many times on this podcast about like I really want to buy a gaming PC. Never have I been so close to pulling out the credit card for a gaming PC than the FOMO of Baldur's Gate 3. Even though the game is coming out on PlayStation the same day as Starfield, I'm reading a lot of things. I'm hearing a lot of things like you're going to want to play this game on PC. It feels so much better on PC for people that have played it like on Steam Deck or played with a controller on PC. This is a mouse and keyboard game through and through. It's kind of what the messaging seems to be from people who have played the game. So all of that to say, like I'm going to play this game and I'm very excited to play this game. I do wonder though, if, and I say this as someone who does this all the time, if this is recency bias, because the game just dropped 2 weeks ago. Tears of the Kingdom been out nearly 3 full months. Baldur's Gate just came out. So like naturally it makes sense that the conversation would be at its loudest now. So I'm super interested a month from now when it's been out on consoles for a couple weeks. Are we still at this volume? And then a month and a half from now when it's been, a month past console launch, are we still at this kind of momentum for Baldur's Gate? We very well could be. I don't know.
So
I obviously can't look into the future, but I do
here's
wonder if there's a recency bias thing happening.
you look. I don't disagree that that very well could be the case. I think the big thing for me when I'm looking at this is we had that conversation earlier about the new Telltale game.
Yeah.
And your concern was that faux choice.
Yeah.
And from all intents and purposes, from everything I've seen, from everything I've heard, Baldur's Gate's that everyone has said, like, this is all those moments that you're like, do my choices actually impact anything? This is the first game that it actually does.
Sure.
And
it's a real D&D type experience.
And so I think the thing is, when you think about an RPG, you think about that, right? You think about things like Mass Effect that really kind of ushered in that, like, oh, if you do things, characters can die. Like, things can go wrong if you make the wrong choices. This game like elevates this to a different level, and it's just, I don't know, man. I think your point earlier though was very accurate. Of like, surprise the hell out of us.
Surprise the fuck.
Like, I was excited to play this game, and if it wasn't for the fact that, like, I know that this game is a huge time sink because it's just so much content. That, like, it's like, that's overwhelming to me, is this idea of like, I can't take that on. But like, there's something there that's like really exciting to me of like, we could, like, this could be like, we could see future games. We could see Horizon, whatever the fuck the sequel is good. The trequel is going to be to the Horizon series. Take on elements where like you can do things. Maybe you can, resurrect Lance Reddick. I don't know. But like, you're like that. What they can do is like, we are now seeing that they're capitalizing on the technology to be able to do things we never thought possible. That's somehow been coded in this, like, this feeling, this true feeling of like, anything like you do, you can do whatever you want. You can stack 50 boxes. You can if you're a druid, you can then change into an owl bear, enlarge yourself, and then do an elbow drop off of 50 boxes and kill a dragon in one hit. It's the same Tears of the Kingdom argument.
I was about to say, though, you kind of are describing Tears of the Kingdom.
It's the same Tears of the Kingdom argument. But that's the point, Patrick. I'm over here sweating. I'm dripping in fucking sweat right now, Patrick.
Yeah.
And but that's the thing.
It's like, you can make the same argument, but this is new.
But this is different.
Interesting.
And that's, I think, where it steps up. That's the whole thing. You get 2 10s. You get 2 fucking juggernaut titans. Fucking Final Fantasy 16 titan fucking beast bitch boys just punching each other in the guts. And which one's going to come out on top? And for me, it's not the one that recycles a lot of the same stuff. It's something that is so different that, like, I think it takes the edge.
Here's my thing, though. I hear you so deeply, and I see you so clearly in front of me.
Sweating, dripping.
So dripping. I can feel the drip.
If you're watching live, you can see the glistening in my hair getting more and more glistening.
And what I'm about to say, I mean with the utmost respect and with nothing but love. It's clear to me that you didn't finish Tears of the Kingdom, because I think, as someone who I capped out at about 170 hours, that game continued to surprise me every hour for 170 hours. And for the most part, you are right about the depths. There isn't a ton there, but there's a lot more there than you think. He said there's a temple. There's more than that. It doesn't seem like you came across. There's all sorts of shit in the sky that completely opens up parts of the game.
You're right. I forgot about the sky.
And even though it is the same map, the amount of things that they did to said map on the ground level to make it feel different, looking at Kakariko Village as an example, like kind of one of the hubs of game 1, completely different feeling and vibe to that city in part 2. I can't think of the name of it, but there's the city like southeast. It's like a fishing village, completely taken over by pirates in Tears of the Kingdom. And so they
you have to
add this kind of new vibe to a lot of the things that you recognize from 1. So I do think, even though it is technically the same map, like for the most part. I do think that they did a good enough job of making it honestly feel completely different in a lot of ways than the first one. Ultimately, there is truth to what you say, though. Like, it is still Breath of the Wild's Hyrule.
Can I make an analogy?
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild is Goku.
Okay. I hope I get this analogy because I'm not a DBZ
Tears
boy.
of the Kingdom is Goku Super Saiyan.
Okay.
And from what I understand, Baldur's Gate 3 is Goku Super Saiyan God.
Yeah, even though I don't watch DBZ, I understand.
Yeah, there's the high, the tier. And here, the tiers. Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom. But yeah, look, here's the thing. At the end of the day, when we get to Game of the Year, I don't know what's going to happen, Patrick.
Yeah.
And I think, but I love this. I love this because when Tears of the Kingdom launched, everyone was like, look, Starfield has to be a 10.
Yeah.
There's no world in which Starfield has to change the fucking game for Tears of the Kingdom to not win Game of the Year.
Yeah.
No one thought that we were going to end up in a situation halfway through August. And here's the other thing too. This is what I think is both brilliant and also bonkers to me. One, the conversation, everyone's so hyped about this game. If you don't have a gaming PC, which I feel like a lot of people don't, apparently a million people do, almost a million people do, or a million people do. Console still hasn't launched yet. So there's going to be another wave of people that have a PlayStation 5 that are going to play this game.
Yeah.
And that's also, I think, going to add to the conversation. But going back to it, it's like the whole thing is this idea in my head of like, we never thought we were going to be here. We didn't think anything was going to stand up against it. And the fact that we do legitimately have a contender against what arguably could be considered one of the greatest open world games of all time. Video games are awesome.
Video games are awesome. Here, can I bring in a member of our audience?
Yeah, I would love you to.
A lovely member of our audience, Nick. Sweet Nick. I put up on our Instagram stories yesterday as a recording this question. What do you think? He texted me. He's like, hey, if I have more to say than can fit in the thing, can I message it to you guys? I was like, please. And this, if you're hearing this, this goes for all of our prompts in the future. If you ever want to say more than what the box lets you, fucking message me. Fucking email me, baby. He sent me some thoughts, Kamen, but there's a lot of good shit in here, so I want to read it. Still have a couple of months left, but as of now, yes. To the question, should Tears of the Kingdom be Game of the Year? So I am like Kamen right now, where I really love Final Fantasy 16. I'm finishing the Platinum right now, but until I do, yes, Tears of the Kingdom is my Game of the Year. Improvements that made me like it more than Breath of the Wild and why it deserves the spot. Number one. We always talk about creativity and changing the formula. I think of the last 2 Game of the Year winners, including Kamen's It Takes Two. Have you seen the amount of videos just from Japan on the inventions made from the mechanics? The game doesn't even need to be beat to make it a fun experience. The mechanics are incredible. Number 2, improvements from Breath of the Wild. From minor small details of opening the map being less annoying to big details like making weapons stronger to resist breaking while still keeping true to the world of Breath of the Wild is how you improve a game's formula. 3, the stakes. The story is important to me in games, and to finally put a face to Calamity Ganon and his true evil, the risk Zelda took, no spoilers, to save the world, to Link being full power and just desecrated in the first few minutes and to fight back, not to mention the side quest improvements. Number 4, top, middle, bottom, enough said. He's referring to the levels of the world. For a Switch game is breathtaking. I could go on and on, but I feel like it hits Kamen's criteria based on what I've heard him talk about. 1, does it impact him or at least most people? Yes. 2, if it's a new game or a sequel, does it innovate and improve on the previous game's flaws? Yes. 3, is the villain, story, or stakes high? Yes. 4, is the content out of the main story great? And if no, is the content outside, like It Takes Two? Does it hold its own as a replayable game and one you would tell people about? Yes. 5, is it not a game called Kingdom Hearts? Yes.
True.
This is a good question, and the year is not done, but for now, it's my Game of the Year, even though I am biased, and Final Fantasy 16 is the first game to make me cry since the original God of War. He makes a lot of good points here, but also hasn't touched Baldur's Gate 3. And I think something that I didn't quite understand about your angle here was the Baldur's Gate 3 of it all. But what do you think about some of those little nuggets Nick threw us?
I think he nailed it on the head of like what the criteria should be, especially when he's referencing like what the criteria should be for a sequel. And I think that's why something like Horizon Forbidden West never came up in our conversations regarding would it be game of the year compared to God of War Ragnarok or Elden Ring. And I think the reason that Elden Ring ended up beating God of War last year was because there was nothing like Elden Ring before. We had Souls-likes, we had that kind of shit, but Elden Ring's different. Sure. Elden Ring was much different. And though I think that God of War just fucking excelled on every single plane, I think that when it comes down to it and you think about like what's the game of that year, like what innovates the most, I think that's where a lot of this lies. And I think he made some very valiant points, especially that it's not Kingdom Hearts. Maybe that will be the game that gets me out of my video game burnout is going back and playing going and playing the Kingdom Hearts collection. Actually, I might give that a whirl just to see what the fuck. I'll probably give up. I'll probably give up the first time they say a name I can't pronounce.
That might turn your burnout into stone, and you'll never.
Yeah, dude, I just completely ashed out. Just dump me out in the woods at that point. But yeah, I think that's. And here's the thing: is Baldur's Gate a game that I would actually enjoy?
That's a great question.
Here's the thing: I don't know, and I'm honestly leaning towards probably not.
Yeah,
but.
What do you think about it? That is it the role playing dice rolling of it?
No, I don't think it's the dice. I think it's just like the gameplay mechanic of like I'm not as big on like the point and click. I want to be able to be more like hands on with that, and be able to like move my character more freely in a sense. I think the dice roll is a really cool mechanic. I think that's really smart and definitely feels like you're playing. You're like, look, this is a game. Probably the best thing I saw was someone explain it as like. Baldur's Gate 3 is Dungeons and Dragons for people who don't have friends. Which like that's awesome. Living out in the mountains, I can't unless I do virtual Dungeons and Dragons, which is I don't think would be as fun as sitting around a table shit hammer with my buddies.
Yeah.
But yeah, here's the thing. I don't know. Like I really don't like and don't get me wrong, I went into Tears of the Kingdom being like, well, I didn't like Breath of the Wild that much.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. So there's a chance I would. But if I had to, I would say that I probably would enjoy the gameplay aspects more of Tears of the Kingdom than just from the gameplay I've seen of Baldur's Gate.
I do think I do want to say I give you definite agreement from me. The weirdest possible way I could have said that, but I'm formulating my thought. That a new has an advantage over a known quantity. Mm-hmm. When it comes to deciding game of the year, because there's it's always exciting to experience something new versus something that you've experienced before. And even though I will be the first to go to the mat for Tears of the Kingdom saying that it really does feel like a completely different game than Breath of the Wild to me, it still controls the same. It's still like you can tell it's built in the same engine. It's in the same space. It's like it very much feels like, for all intents and purposes, at its most basic, it does feel like Breath of the Wild, even though there are a lot of things that make it far superior and really kind of freshens that formula up. Like your point with Elden Ring and God of War last year, I think if we were to go back 15 years and looked at every game of the year winner and what it was up against, I bet we would see a lot of new quantities outperform known quantities for sure. Then the question is, does Tears of the Kingdom have the power as the known quantity to beat something new like this, or like Starfield when that comes out in September?
And I think the other thing too is something that we I don't know, like maybe we're not really mentioning, but I think if Breath of the Wild came out the year after, I think Mario Odyssey probably was going to win Game of the Year.
It was definitely, I think so too.
And so Mario Odyssey, one could say, well, that's pretty much just a sequel. It's a known quantity, but it's not, right? It's something very different. That game was so different than like any Mario that came before it. And that's what, you want to look for that. And while I do think there's so many nice enhancements and tweaks and little things that make the game much better, and there's so many cool little things like shooting your ass up in the sky, landing on an island, using shit to fly around, do all that. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And I really don't want this to sound like I'm being harsh on Tears of the Kingdom, because I'm not. This is specifically and solely when it comes down to like what is going to win Game of the Year at the Game Awards. And I think from what I've seen, from what I've heard, from the reaction, I would put my money, if we were putting money down right now, Patrick.
Yeah.
I would without a doubt. And you know me, I don't like betting.
Yeah.
I would put money down. Baldur's Gate 3 right now. Obviously, everything could change once Starfield comes out, and that could be very different. I don't think fucking Spider-Man 2, as much as I think that game is going to do really, really, really well and score really, really, really well, and probably be my personal game of the year, which might be tough to beat out Final Fantasy 16, but probably would be my personal game of the year. I still don't think that game is going to even have a shot in hell.
Yeah.
Against the Baldur's Gate and Tears of the Kingdom.
Here's a great question from the chat. I can't even. Who will be the baby of the year?
That's it. Fucking, I'm done here. I'm done here. This isn't working.
Very good, Rose. Final thought, and then we'll close out the show. I do think it's incredibly interesting. You made the point about concurrence on Steam, that it almost broke the record. The amount of sales that Baldur's Gate 3 has on one console, PC, is staggering. And then at the moment, the number one kind of contender against it is Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which is also setting sales records. And then you look at last year, God of War Ragnarok, one of the highest selling games, Elden Ring, the highest selling game other than Call of Duty. That doesn't count. But it's just interesting to me that there happens to be, in, a 2-year sample, really fucking high sales also in line with Game of the Year contenders, which is an interesting thing. I mean, the market speaks that, hey, this game is fucking great.
In November, Hogwarts Legacy gets launched on Switch.
Yeah.
And it's going to perform there too.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now, Zelda has a few million of a lead over Hogwarts, but I don't know that it's going to hold that when Hogwarts
I think my prediction was Hogwarts was going to be the best-selling game of. Well, here's the thing, and this is where I think things are going to get weird. Nintendo doesn't release their digital Switch, so like they have to sell all physical.
Yeah.
So maybe not.
Yeah. Our bet specifically was, I said Tears of the Kingdom would outsell Hogwarts. You said Hogwarts would outsell Tears of the Kingdom. And so it's just those two games pitted against.
Which is pretty cool that we end up in that situation.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Because Call of Duty is going to be the best selling game. It always is every single year. But yeah, right now, as of 2 weeks ago, Legend of Zelda was at 18.5 million when Nintendo released theirs. And then let's see what Hogwarts Legacy is at right now. As of May, 15 million. So it honestly might even be at 18 at this point in 3 more months. But
yeah, we're not even considering the fact that for a fact that Tears of the Kingdom is not going to get a discount at Christmas. It might get a little bit of a bump there, but the truth is, I think Black Friday sales, Hogwarts Legacy will go on discount, and that shit's going to fucking be sold out.
Yes.
I still think that there's a good shot that game, but then again, 3 million, that's a lot.
That the crazy thing though is, I think depending on how close the number is, we can probably agree. If the number is close, it's probably Legend of Zelda, because we don't have the digital sales for Legend of Zelda. Because the fact that it's 18.5 million physical in 3 months is staggering. The Switch, man, it is a special fucking console. That game is already the 9th best selling game on Switch. And when it's all said and done, will probably be top 5.
Pretty crazy.
Let us know. What do you think? Where do you align in the Tears of the Kingdom Game of the Year conversation? Would you think it can be one of the games coming out this fall? Do you think it's going to be Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate, something that already came out, Hogwarts Legacy, perhaps? Let us know. Mail at spotlightgames.net, or you can DM us on Twitter, SpotGamesPod, or everything else, Spotlight Games Pod. But Kamen, I want to really close out the show with our game release update calendar. Calendar update. Game release update calendar. Calendar update game release. How was that? Got a couple updates for you.
Yeah.
Nintendo Online, the Pokemon card trading game on Game Boy, now available. Pokemon Stadium 2 on N64, now available on Switch Online. Coming to Game Pass tomorrow as of release, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 18th. Also wanted to note, end of the month, Immortality is leaving Game Pass. Play Immortality if you have it. That game fucking rules. But also, if you have a Netflix subscription, you can play Immortality on your TV. I just don't really know how, but you can do it because it's a Netflix game too. Batman Arkham Trilogy coming to Switch October 13th. The first of two DLCs for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has a date. The Teal Mask is dropping September 13th, so just under a month. And then the second DLC is still dropping this winter, in quotes, so probably beginning of next year. A re-release of Red Dead Redemption is dropping this Friday, the 18th, as well on PS4, which also means PS5 and Switch. But it's going to be $50, which is kind of silly. But if you've never played the game and you like cowboys, the game does fucking rule. $50 just seems like a bit much to me for a game that has no improvements. Also, Assassin's Creed Mirage doing something we don't see often, pushed up a week from the 12th to the 5th of October, I guess, trying to get as many sales as they can before Alan Wake, Spider-Man, and the new Mario game later in the month. And also, they confirmed it's going to be $50. Interesting. Some PS Plus additions for this month. End of the month on the 29th, my wife's birthday, Sea of Stars, which is a really cool old school feeling JRPG with a really cool art style. Check out Sea of Stars if you like those games. Like Nick, I bet you're going to like Sea of Stars. Moving Out 2 is available now. Destiny 2, The Witch Queen, Lost Judgment, Destroy All Humans 2, Reprobed, 2 Point Hospital, recently left Game Pass, now on PlayStation Plus Extra. And also Dreams are also available now on PlayStation Plus. And then later this month, just as like a little nugget, little note, we talked about it earlier, but Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon drops on the 25th. Just as like a reminder.
Here's the thing, Patrick. Here's the thing. That game looks sick as fuck.
It looks fucking cool. I'm not going to play that game, though.
It's going to take me forever to get to it.
I can almost guarantee you I won't play in calendar year 2023 Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon.
Well, as much as I want to play because it looks so good and I like the old Armored Core games, I just can't.
Yeah, not going to happen. The games I'm prioritizing, Starfield, Alan Wake, and Marvel Spider-Man. But I hope that I can get to more than that. But those are the three that I'm absolutely definitely playing. Like, I really want to play Assassin's Creed. I really want to play Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Actually, I'll be playing Super Mario Bros. Wonder too. That's on Switch. So that's a little different. Also, if I may, Kamen.
You may.
Friend of the show, Handsome Tony. His birthday right now.
Handsome Tony.
Let's all say happy birthday to Handsome Tony. He's probably not listening, but happy fucking birthday, Tony. I hope you're not on Instagram. But
every time I see him, I wish him a happy birthday, and I miss it on his actual birthday. Hold on, let me text that boy.
Call him right now. Let's get him on live on air.
Do you think? I don't think he'd answer me.
I'll try.
You try.
Let's see. Tony Thomas. I don't know why he's not in my phone as Handsome Tony Thomas.
Did you please tell me you typed in handsome?
I tried. All right, here we go. Let's see. Let's see if he's a coward or if he's going to talk to him.
Hello.
Hey, Tony. How are you? Tony, can you hear me?
Wait. Hello.
Hello, Tony. How are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
What happened there? Were you lost in space?
Oh, Tony.
Oh, no. I had my headphones on.
Oh, your headphones.
For some reason, I didn't connect.
Well, Tony, you're live on the Spotlight Games podcast right now. We just wanted to call you to wish you a happy birthday.
Oh, man. Thank you so much. I had a great birthday.
Good. I'm glad. Are you a little drunk right now?
A little bit. Yeah.
No, that's my boy.
I didn't stop.
Good.
I just kept going.
Good.
Good.
You can't hear Kamen right now, but he's very proud of you and he says happy birthday as well.
Can you ask Kamen if we can have sloppy steaks at Tribbiani's?
Yes, we can have sloppy steaks at Tribbiani's.
Yes, we can. We can have sloppy steaks at Tribbiani's, he says. I'm translating for you.
I think we should have some. What is it? What is it? It's something to Ciccolini's.
Something at Ciccolini's, he said.
Ciccolini's.
Oh man, I'm also a giant piece of shit.
He's a giant.
Yeah, me too, brother. I'm a giant.
It's not that he used to be. He currently is a giant piece of shit. Well, Tony, thank you for answering. Happy birthday. From here at Spotlight Games, we love you. We hope you have a great rest of your night. But goodbye.
Thank you.
We did it, folks.
We did it, folks.
Have a great rest of your week. Oh, we got a comment. Hold on. Let's go. Used to be a piece of shit.
Used to be a piece of shit.
Let us know who's going to be Baby of the Year and who will be Game of the Year. But until then, Spot Games Pod, Spotlight Games Pod, Peashwag, Dumpster Boy, you know where to follow us and find us. Bye-bye.